intramembranous, only a minority of the bones in your body are formed via that intramembranous. This is formed before birth. Now, endochondral ossification, the majority of your body's bones are formed via this process. Okay, so endochondral ossification. I love this term, and you might be like, oh my god, this is like all science jargon. But if you've been paying attention to your root words and your suffixes and prefixes, then you might know what this is already. So again, endo means something that's inner within something. And then what we have with chondro is cartilage. So it means inside cartilage. And hey, that ossification, so that ification means becoming something. So basically, endochondral ossification means bone becoming bone inside cartilage. So cartilage is essential for endochondral ossification. That's why it's in the name. So what the basic, to summarize it in just one sentence, you're taking a cartilage structure and gradually replacing it with bone tissue. So you're replacing that one type of supported connective tissue with another type of supported connective tissue. So you have a switcheroo. So most of the bones, so pretty much all the bones except the ones formed by intramembranous ossification that we just covered, they start out as hyaline cartilage. So they have some structure, but they're not quite fully developed yet. Now, here's the Martini version, but yes, all of our bones that weren't formed through intramembranous ossification started out as a hyaline cartilage structure. And what we have here is a very basic, looks like a long bone. And eventually what happens is that blood vessels, remember, they're the ones that carry all those minerals needed to make the ground substance of bone mineral. So they're going to carry all that calcium, phosphate, magnesium, and everything else you need. And this is going to initially form initial structure. So what we have is bones starting to form around that initial cartilage structure. And then it's actually going, these blood vessels are not just going to be superficial on the outside. They can also poke within the cartilage, and what they eventually do is start to cause calcification on the inside of the cartilage. So we have bone on the outside and bone on the inside, and eventually these bones, this bone tissue here, is going to form a little pocket, and this is what we call the medullary cavity. So it is a space that has that allows room for other tissues. So this medullary cavity actually widens. So that the whole thing, like we covered with osteoblast and osteoclast. So remember, like if you have a really broken down house, you want to remodel it to create new material that's not rotting away. So bone remodeling refers to the process of reshaping, breaking down bone, and making new bone. So this remodeling is actually going to expand that area. That medullary cavity is going to expand. And then it's going to form a hollow center. I mean, there's other tissues in there, but in terms of bone, it's going to have space within that bone. It's not going to be a solid bone all the way through. And the cool thing is that not only do you have that medullary cavity in the center of a bone, developing bone, then other blood vessels start to poke inside the other parts of the ends of the initial hyaline cartilage and also form their own pockets as well. So this is what we call, so this part right here that formed first, this is what we call the primary ossification center, so primary meaning first. And these parts right here are what we call secondary ossification centers. So yeah, that's the cool thing about endochondral ossification. So you start off with cartilage, and remember, cartilage does have living cells. Remember those chondrocytes? They live in those little pockets we call lacunae. So these chondrocytes are going to divide, and remember that these chondrocytes, they love building new cartilage. So as they build new cartilage, they're going to build more distance between them and other chondrocytes, and if they're here within bone, they're going to also build more distance between them and this existing bone as well. And hey, through endochondral ossification, that's when we start to turn that cartilage into bone. And eventually what happens when our bones are fully developed, you still have some cartilage, but now they're at the very end of bones, but you don't see the cartilage actually within the bone itself. So this cartilage that was over here, this is what we call epiphyseal cartilage. It actually fuses together. So these two pockets of bone, now they become something we call the epiphyseal line.